Welcome back to the Strong AF Climbing Podcast. I am thrilled to have my friend Kelly Birch on the show today. Kelly's not only a crusher on the rock, sending climbs up to V14, she's also an absolute crusher in the weight room. Kelly has a powerlifting background and she strength trains to support her climbing. And in this conversation, Kelly's going to share how she balances these two passions and how strength training has actually elevated her climbing performance. We're going to dive into the benefits of lifting for climbers. We're going to debunk some common myths and get Kelly's top tips for incorporating strength work without sacrificing time on the wall. Whether you're a climber who has been hesitant to start lifting or you're just looking to optimize your training, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. And Kelly's journey is truly inspiring. I can't wait for you to hear her story. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Strong AF podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Barnes. I'm a strength and rehab coach for climbers, and I blend my 24 years of expertise and experience as an elite level climber, competitive powerlifter, and rehab professional to bring you a podcast that will help you become stronger and more resilient. In this podcast, we'll talk about all things strength training for climbers. We'll also talk about climbing injuries, rehab, and why training and rehab go hand in hand. To connect, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Natasha Barnes. To find out more about coaching or getting help with an injury, check out my website at natashabarnesrehab.com. And now, let's get to the episode. All right, welcome back to the Strong AF Climbing Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to have my friend Kelly Birch on the show. She's not only a crusher, she has sent like V13, V14, but she's also an advocate for strength training. She has a powerlifting background, and she still manages to climb at an elite level. We'll dive into how she balances both. We'll debunk some common fears around strength training for climbers, and we'll show how lifting can elevate your climbing game. So let's just get into it. Kelly, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm thrilled. Thank you for having me. I am such a huge fan of yours and all the content that you put out and how much you're advocating for strength training in the climbing community. And everyone I talk to about you is always like, Natasha's the best. I love everything that she does. So when you asked me, I was really excited. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, you really stand out to me because, obviously we know each other through climbing, but I found out that you were a power lifter. Like you had like a
Yeah.
powerlifting basically career before, or like in the middle, like sandwiched.
Yeah, I've had a weird kind of journey.
Yeah, tell us about that. So tell us about your climbing journey. Like, how did you get started with climbing? When did strength training come into the picture? All of that.
Yeah, so I started climbing when I was about 11. I had played tennis as a kid and like some other sports, but none of them really resonated. And then did a summer camp at my local gym when I was, like I said, about 11, and saw the local youth team practicing there and was like, whoa, this is a thing. And just absolutely loved it and started doing the youth comps and stuff. This was in 2005, 6, 7, 8 through when I graduated high school in 2012. And I loved it. Did all the youth comps for probably 6 or 7 years, regionals, divisionals, nationals. I always felt like I was pretty good, but I was not like a phenom. Like I wasn't going to go become a World Cup competitor, especially not at that time. I mean, climbing has blown up so much in the last decade or even the last 5 years. And as I think is the story with a lot of youth athletes, regardless of the sport that they're doing, by the time I was kind of reaching the end of my youth career, I was feeling pretty burnt out. Like I had kind of lost the love for it, especially because we did not do a lot of climbing outside at that time. There wasn't a ton of local outdoor climbing where I was growing up in central Arizona. My parents didn't climb. And so when I got to college, I told myself, I'm just going to take a little bit of time off and just focus on school and making friends and having the college experience. And then I kind of never went back because I just felt kind of free of all of the pressure and like emotional strife of dealing with like perfectionism and competition and stuff. But after a couple years of not really doing any sports, or athletic endeavors or anything, I kind of was just feeling the itch for something else. I was feeling a little out of shape. I was feeling like I missed having something to like focus on like physically, and push myself. And I just started going to like an LA Fitness. My boyfriend at the time was really into working out and like showed me how to squat and like do other basic lifts and stuff. And I started getting into that, just doing it like for fun to get fitter and feel, better about myself. And then I met a couple people at the gym who did powerlifting competitively, which I had no idea was a thing. And I can't even recall what like motivated me to decide to do it. I was like, well, this seems cool. I should try to do that. So I just learned how to do, squat, bench, deadlifts, and the other kind of related lifts. And I ended up hiring a powerlifting coach and just kind of dove right in and started doing some powerlifting meets. And I did that for about 3 years. And I think I was still loving lifting, but I ended up moving to an apartment in San Diego that was like basically down the block from Mesa Rim, which for anyone listening, that's like the big chain of climbing gyms in San Diego. And just went to the climbing gym for the first time in like years. Um, and actually was like, wow, I'm not that bad at this right now. Like I feel rusty, but I felt really like physically strong. And it had been so many years since I was feeling so pressured and bogged down by the competitive aspect of it that I felt like my love for the sport got reignited really easily. And that was in 2017. So yeah, like almost 8 years ago now. I think it'll be like 8 years this summer since I got back into it and just like met some cool people who were bouldering hard outside at like local spots in SoCal. And yeah, now we're here.
Over here. That's so awesome. I love that. I had a similar experience. Like I got a little burnt out from climbing and like just dealing with like injuries and tweaks and stuff. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna take a break and focus on something new. And that's sort of how I got drawn into powerlifting also. And then you come back to climbing and you're like, oh my God, I feel like actually really strong on the wall. And
Yeah,
you're a little rusty and like maybe your fingers aren't like where they need to be right away, but like your body feels so good.
exactly. Yeah. And especially like, I mean, growing up in the 2000s and on the youth climbing team, like we didn't train, like kids didn't strength train. Climbers weren't doing it. There was no strength training. Our gym didn't even have like a barbell setup. That would have never, crossed our minds. We're just climbing a lot. And there wasn't a lot of like, super scientific approach to doing it. And that was part of what I really loved about powerlifting is how easily you could like, and especially with my coach as well, kind of showing me how to do this in the beginning, is like it's so easy and intuitive to like track how well you're progressing over time. And it's made it so much more fun to train for climbing, to like take that mindset and that approach and do it for climbing training.
Yeah, I feel like I really learned how to climb better through, or how to train better through powerlifting because,
Mm-hmm.
or we would just climb, and like nothing super systematic or anything. But then you learn that like you can create a plan, follow a plan, and have a little bit more of a scientific and systematic approach, and it actually works. And with lifting, it's very measurable, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of how you get addicted to it, I feel like. But
Yeah, totally agreed.
yeah, I think I became a much more mature athlete through powerlifting actually, and then coming back to climbing, like a much more patient, mature approach to climbing after that. I don't know if like you had the same experience or
I totally agree. I'm sure some of it's attributable to age too, and just, growing up. But I also feel like with powerlifting, you're trying to optimize your performance on literally like three things. So there's so much attention to detail about
mm,
your body and exactly how to do this one thing like perfectly. And I feel like paying attention to those things has helped me become a more analytical climber about my body on the wall. Like, what are my hips doing? What are my feet doing? How am I, moving my body in space? And I feel like when I was younger, like I said, I'm sure some of this is just because I was young and maybe not thinking about it in this way at that age. But like, I don't think I was thinking in this analytical way about
yeah.
my body, when I was like training and climbing when I was younger.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Cool. So you've sent like V13s like freaks of the industry. V14 muscle car.
Yeah.
Um, how do you feel like your experience with strength training has shaped your climbing?
I can't imagine like being even close to strong without strength training, that's for sure. Um, where do I even start? I mean, especially, I mean, maybe the approach is different, of course, if you're doing like really long sport climbing or big wall climbing, like your approach and your, not that, I mean, you should be strength training too, most likely, if those are your goals. But as someone who's focused on hard bouldering, like it is a strength sport. When you're trying to do really hard moves, how do you get better at that? But to make your body stronger. And especially with the kind of seasonal nature of like the alpine season here in Colorado, I try to approach it with like when it's cold and it's kind of a little bit more of the off season of climbing outside. I'm doing a lot of strength training and honestly less climbing than people would probably expect. And then as it gets, closer to the time where I'm going to pick some projects or I want to go climbing outside, well, then I'm doing a lot more, skill practice, mostly like climbing on one of the boards, like limit bouldering, as you would call it, and kind of scaling back the strength training a little bit. And then once I get like hooked into a project, I'm really just trying to like optimize myself for that project and doing like a strength maintenance session and maybe one gym session a week and otherwise just like resting and focusing on projecting. I also really feel like strength training has helped me try harder, like in the moment on the
Yeah.
wall. I don't know if you feel this way, but like really access that like complete full body GER,
Yeah.
which I feel like I've become much more skilled at in recent years. And I think I would definitely be due to lifting heavy. Um,
Yeah, I
because
have
it
for
takes, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
oh sorry, I have for sure noticed that my clients have too. Like I feel like a lot of people don't have never experienced like purely trying really hard and like with a
Yeah.
lift like the deadlift, it's like all you really have to do is try really hard and pull on it. And my clients are like, wow, I actually know how to try hard now. Like this is so cool.
Yeah.
And I can apply it to the climbing wall. And like same, I'm like, oh wow, I know what it actually means to like really try hard and really tension through my whole body.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I've like taught and shown like several of my friends how to lift and stuff like that. And I feel like people, especially when they're first starting, don't even know how strong you already are. Like
Yeah.
I just like keep okay, put on another couple of pounds, put another couple of pounds, put another couple of pounds, even after they're like, well, it feels heavy, but they're still moving it in like 2 seconds. So I'm like,
Totally.
keep going. It's supposed to feel heavy.
Yeah, that's such a common experience. I feel like a lot of my clients, especially when I see people in person, I'm like, that they're like, okay, yeah, that feels like my RPE 8. I'm like, I think you could have done that for 10 more reps, actually. Like, they're
Yeah.
like, really, it feels heavy. I'm like, yeah, because you're starting to feel the weight, but that's not anywhere close to your limit. Like,
Yeah.
let's put 20 more pounds on and see how it feels. And they do it, and they're
Sure.
like, oh.
Oh, just like make them do an AMRAP with what they think is their RPE 8. And then
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, wait, I did like 20 reps of that.
Yeah, we do that. So in the foundational strength program that I have, we do an RP, we
Yeah.
do two RPE audits, but they are AMRAP sets, and people will often like undershoot their RPE 8 by 7 to 11 reps.
That's
They
crazy.
have 7 to 11 more reps on average. That's just on average. So there's been people with more than that, um, more reps than they thought they could do
Wow.
because they
That's
just weren't
crazy.
aware, they weren't aware of like what their actual like limits are because they've never
Yeah.
lifted before.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think especially with like at least I hear this from people when I'm like cajoling them into strength training for climbing or talking to people about it. Like the big lifts, like squats and deadlifts in particular, like when they feel heavy, people are like afraid of it almost. Like, oh, if it feels really heavy, maybe I'll get hurt or I'll do it wrong or something like that, when that's, unlikely to be true.
Yeah, I think people can be a little scared to push themselves, but if we're doing it regularly and you're getting some exposure to the movement and we're doing it like progressively over time, like, and also you can like do a heavy single and be okay. Like you can really
Yeah.
pick it up in, like once and probably be totally fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think people get a little more experience with heavy lifting and they start to realize like how strong they actually are, which is really cool. It's really cool to watch. And I'm sure you've seen that with like some of your friends and also have experienced that yourself.
Yeah. I think, yeah, just, I mean, lifting overall beyond obviously the extreme like physical benefits, just like the analytical mindset of like a little bit of progression over a long period of time is, that's kind of like the projecting mindset. And I, like even going into a projecting session on something hard that I'm working on, like I'm probably not going to send it on this session, but my goal is to do like these two overlapping parts or link like these moves together. Like that kind of progressive overload mindset like carries over into even just projecting.
Yeah, totally. Having that like that process oriented mindset more than just outcome. Like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't send this time. I'm a failure. It's like, no, it's a whole process, especially if you're climbing at your limit. Like, you're not going to
For
go
sure.
in. If you are, it's not your limit. Like,
Exactly. Um, and I mean, like the physical benefits are like too many to count. I feel like I'm just stronger all over, especially as someone who I don't feel like I'm naturally a super like powerful, like snappy climber. Like I'm quite tall with like long limbs. I don't build muscle very easily. I cannot do a one arm pull up, you know. I cannot campus 158 or whatever else other
yeah.
people are doing. But I feel, especially deadlifting, I feel like my body tension through like my entire body is extremely strong. Like the ability to keep your feet on, and
Yeah.
like keep, even when you cut feet, like keep the tension through your shoulders and your core and things like that. I feel like that's been huge for me as someone who, yeah, is not like super snappy and super powerful by nature. I think it's helped so much.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's really apparent in your climbing. Like if anybody watches your, like go to Kelly's Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Kelly A. Birch.
Kelly A. Birch. Go look, we'll link it. You just watch her climb. Like so much strength, so much control. Like all of that is like developed through obviously climbing and practice, but also like having that physical baseline as well. And everybody that I know who strength trains and climbs just has so much tension, so much control through their body when they're climbing. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, even if when I watch old videos of myself from when I was, 16, 17 climbing, I don't look like the same climber
Yeah.
whatsoever. I am so like I had never climbed double digits outside as a kid. Granted, we weren't really doing a lot of climbing outside, so who knows if I would have if I had like been doing it a lot more.
Mm.
But within like 6 months or so of climbing, maybe 9 months of climbing again after like an almost 5 year break, I climbed my first V10 and like several others that year. And I would totally attribute that to strength training.
Yeah, totally. I took a long break too, I think like 5 or 6 years, and then started climbing again during 2020 because I built a tension board during lockdown.
I remember seeing all that content from you.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, it was so fun. And I was like, oh yeah, I love, I forgot how much I love climbing. And then I started having friends over when that was cool. And like we started having sessions and stuff. And then I started climbing outside with one of my friends. And I was like putting down like multiple V8s in a climbing session, which would never happen before. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely, like even when I was climbing V11 outside, I was rarely climbing like V7 or harder in the climbing gym. And like, during that period, I was like flashing V7s regularly, sending V8s regularly, going outside and sending V9s in a couple of sessions or in a couple of tries. Or a couple of sessions depending on the V9, which was like crazy to me because I had just
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 years off. Like,
No, it's amazing. Similar kind of story. And you are, way, way stronger at powerlifting than I am or ever
I,
was. So
I definitely stayed in it for longer. I'm still in it. Like I feel like I
yeah.
dip my toe back into climbing sometimes, and then I'm like, I'm gonna do a powerlifting meet. Like
No, I
one day
think it's
I'll like
awesome.
fully focus on climbing again, but I just go
Yeah.
where the psych is.
For sure. No, I think you've carved out this like super cool and very necessary kind of niche in the climbing community that people are really inspired by.
Yeah, it's been really fun. One thing I wanted to ask you, because I had this experience. So when I came back to climbing and I started feeling strong again, I noticed that like the styles of climbing that I was gravitating towards, or like the styles of climbs that I could get on, like actually changed. Like I always had really strong fingers, and I would always gravitate towards like vertical crimp lines, and all of my hardest ascents were like on vert crimp. And I'm still like better at that skill, but I've been able to get on like really hard, like steep compression lines and things that I just would never have been like on the table before after developing like shoulder strength and back strength and all the strength
Mm-hmm.
through lifting. Like, have you noticed that in your climbing?
For sure. Yeah. I used to really gravitate away when I was younger from climbs, especially that had really big moves. Even though I'm fairly like long and tall with a plus eighth index, just not having like power to kind of generate really long distances. Whereas now I feel like I excel at that. Used to really not want to cut feet because I didn't have, a lot of the kind of shoulder and like upper back like strength and stability to do well at that. And now my favorite style of climbing is like board style climbing. So I still love to crimp. I feel like my fingers are probably my strongest asset still. But yeah, like cutting feet on every move is great to me now, whereas younger me would have hated that because I just couldn't stay in that position because I didn't feel strong there.
Yeah.
But and absolutely with compression stuff too, that I still feel like I'm not as strong at that as I am at more kind of like straightforward overhanging board style climbing. But I've sent some like squeezy compression like V12s, which
Yeah.
I would have never thought that that would be the case.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that you have noticed that. And I think that a lot of my clients have noticed that when they start strength training, they just have this like strength power reserve that like they just didn't have before. And that affords them being able to cut, being able to jump, being able to just like maintain on a climb for longer. Like even like power endurance on a climb for me, it's like my shoulders, I remember climbing before and like my shoulders would just give out at a certain point and I couldn't maintain my like positioning anymore, even when my fingers could still hold on. And now it's like I don't power down through my shoulders and back. If I'm powering down, at least for me personally, it's my fingers. It's not my body anymore, which is
Yeah.
like a really crazy thing to feel in a climbing session.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I feel that way too. And I mean, with the power endurance stuff, like yeah, if all the moves feel easier because you're really strong, you're gonna
Yeah,
get tired way less quickly and be able to climb for longer. I mean, I
totally.
think most people who are elite sport climbers spend most of their time or a lot of their time doing hard bouldering and then transition
Yeah.
into, an endurance phase as they're getting closer to leading up to whatever like objective that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, I always tell my clients like endurance is really easy to get. We just do a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of monkey climbing. It's really easy. The strength is harder, and that's where you have to spend more time bouldering, more time like strength training. Even my sport climbers, I'm like, we're gonna boulder because like if the crux is gonna feel easier, the sport climb is gonna feel easier to you. And if you're
Yeah,
stronger, there's less to endure. Um,
exactly.
I also feel like as a rehab professional, finger injuries are something that I see a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times sometimes there's freak accidents and stuff, but a lot of times the injuries that I see are overuse injuries. And I feel like it comes from people like trying to get strong by doing tons of climbing. And I think the thing with that they don't realize is like if you do a little less climbing and you do some strength training, like strength training is like the fast track to getting stronger on the wall. Like obviously we want to practice the skill of climbing, but it's also going to save your skin. It's also going to save your fingers. And if we're strength training in the gym, it's like a lot more measurable and controllable. Do you feel like strength training has like helped you avoid injury or helped you through injury or anything like that in the past?
Yes, 100%. And I was just about to be like, wait, we're talking about benefits of strength training. I should mention this next. And then you asked me. Because I completely agree with you, especially when I first jumped back into climbing after my long break, I definitely, for like a couple years, was very much in like, oh, climb as much as possible because I was so excited to be back. And I felt like I had a real skill like deficit to make up for because it had been several years since I was doing it. But then after that, I definitely kind of rethought my training approach a little bit and am doing now kind of exactly what you mentioned. But yeah, I mean, knock on wood, but I am rarely injured or even have like tweaks of any kind. No, I mean, I no finger injuries, or at least very rarely. If so, it's like a small little tweak that passes in like a few days. But yeah, especially shoulders, knees, all that stuff, I very rarely am struggling with any like injuries or tweaks. And honestly, I feel like it's almost normalized for climbers to be like, oh, I hurt all the time, I whatever.
Yeah.
And it kind of drives me nuts because I'm like, if you are like a 26-year-old healthy person who's like, oh, my body hurts so bad and I'm so injured, I'm whatever, like you're doing something wrong. Like
Yeah.
you should not feel like that.
Totally. I'm always preaching this because I remember feeling that in my 20s because I wasn't strength training. I was doing too much climbing. And now I'm in my 40s. I'm almost 42. And like I feel better than I did when I was in my 20s. And so when I hear people or my clients complaining about that stuff, I'm like, it literally doesn't have to be like that. Like you should not feel like that, especially in your late 20s or even your early 30s or, beyond. If you're strength training and you have that foundation, you're taking care of your body that way and like managing your climbing better, like you don't have to feel like that.
Completely. Yeah. And I guess the term I use a lot is like junk mileage. Like how much of the climbing that you're doing is actually making you better at climbing, especially if you're, training to do hard bouldering. How is like your 3 hour session just like messing around on like a million sub maximal climbs
Right.
helping you get better at that? Like you could be resting, which would probably make you better, or you could be climbing less and doing strength training, which would make you better. Like
Yes.
when I'm in like strength training mode, which I kind of am starting to be now because it's freezing here and I'm not going to be doing a lot of climbing outside, I'm probably only climbing 3, maybe 4 times a week. And usually my climbing sessions are like 90 minutes. Maybe
Yeah.
like 2 hours, like including the warm up, maybe. But
But
yeah, what?
they're focused sessions.
Very focused. I prefer to strength train before I climb. I don't like to do it after, or I'm doing like a full strength session on its own day. I
Yeah.
know I'm sure people have like different preferences the way they
I
like
like
to do
that
that,
too.
but
I like that too. I tell a lot of my clients, I'm like, you'll get used to it eventually, but honestly, I feel better if I can go do full powerlifting training and go have a climbing session and I feel really good because like the
I
climb.
sometimes that way too. Literally just happened to me yesterday. I did like heavy rows and squats and like a few other things, and then had a tension board session, and I was like, wow, I'm climbing so well. This is really
Yeah.
strange.
It's like it just warms you up and like primes you to try hard. And all you got to really do is like warm up your fingers a little bit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the next day I might climb. I try to like structure it where like first day on, I don't ever go more than 2 days on pretty much. Like I don't climb like 4 days in a row. I don't, or work out 4 days in a row. That's crazy to me. But like first day on, I'm usually doing like a really focused like limit bouldering session and like nothing else. And then second day on, I'm doing a strength session and then a shorter climbing session, rest, and like repeat with the different strength training stuff that I'm doing. And I am doing some sort of like usually like weighted hangs or something in there as well.
Yeah, that makes sense for sequence. I want to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you some other questions. But before I move into the next section, I forgot to address this at the beginning. I just want people to have an idea of like your level. We talked about like V13, V14 climbing. When you were powerlifting, like what were your maxes?
Oh gosh. I'm almost like embarrassed to say my bench max because I'm so bad at bench pressing. I think my bench max was only like 150 pounds.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
uh, at the time, I spent quite, just for some background, I spent quite a lot of time when I started powerlifting, like gaining some weight on purpose to be more competitive in a higher weight class
Yes.
because I'm naturally a fairly like non-muscular person. So it took a lot of effort and food for me to like do that. Um, so yeah, bench was only like 150. My deadlift max was about 345 pounds, and then squat um was like 280, if I'm
Awesome.
remembering correctly.
That's awesome.
I'm not meeting those numbers now, but that's okay.
And you're not powerlifting now, but you're
No,
still
no.
lifting pretty heavy. Like the other day I saw on your Instagram, I think you tripled like 285 on your deadlift or something.
Yeah, that was back in like April of last year. So that was like the end of my like strength training block last year, which was really successful.
My
I
God,
felt
time
really
flies. I'm like the other day.
the other day, no, time has no meaning. I realized that I was saving some documents today for work and I was naming them all as 2024, like
Oh yeah,
January 1st, 14th, 2024. My manager was like, "Can you rename this?" I was like,
we're
"Oh,
still
sorry."
struggling. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I was deadlifting like 280 something just a few months ago, and squatting like close to 200 and benching, I don't even remember. Sometimes I don't. I'm less consistent about bench. I frequently maybe do like incline bench or dumbbell bench or whatever, but the lifts that I'm very consistent with in terms of like the barbell lifts is I'm deadlifting, squatting. I honestly prefer overhead press. I really like that barbell overhead press, and then um, do some accessories, but I'm probably fewer accessories than I used to do because I'm obviously trying to like be efficient with like the most quote important strength stuff so then I can have time for climbing. But I know we'll get into that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay, so I also wanted to ask you because I know a lot of people listening have some like fears or have heard some myths about strength training and climbing. Some climbers are really worried that strength training is going to make them bulky or like, interfere with their climbing. Like, what's your take on that?
My take on that is that you can't you physically cannot get bigger unless you consistently like consume more calories than you expend. So
Yeah.
if you start strength training and you eat the same food, I'm not suggesting that everyone like goes on a, calorie tracking, macro tracking. I don't think most people really need to do that. But like if you know how you eat, you know what you're eating, you strength train, you're not just gonna like blow up like a balloon. That's crazy. That's just not how thermodynamics works.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Yeah,
like
it's literally
if
like,
yeah, like if someone's like, oh, I started strength training and I got huge, I would be like, well, let me like, what was your diet like? Did you start eating a lot more? Which I mean, maybe I honestly think most people are probably under eating, especially climbers.
for sure.
Um, so and also like gaining weight isn't a bad thing. I don't want to talk about like exactly how much I weigh or how much people weigh or anything like that. But even in the last like probably couple of years, I've gained like 10 pounds just because eating more, lifting more. And I mean, have climbed V14, so I'm not really that worried about it.
I think it's not holding, it's actually helping
No,
you.
but it's such like an insidious fear in the climbing community. I mean, there's so many kind of stories from people and people that are kind of struggling a little silently with not, some element of like disordered eating or body dysmorphia, or with even if they know it's not true, that kind of internalized mindset of like being lighter is better. And they think about lifting as a thing that like big muscular people do. But I'm a climber, so why would I do that? Because I'm trying to be like as lean as possible, which is not true. And I think people know that like rationally, but it's a hard like emotional mindset to break, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because like, you see weightlifters and you're like, well, I'm not trying to look like that, which is like, yeah, we're not the goal, like we're not putting you on a program, a diet or a program that's going to make you look like that.
They are working so hard to look like that, doing
Yeah.
only that.
Yeah.
Like
And also,
adding,
like, as two people, you and I, who have actually like gained weight intentionally to support powerlifting, like we can attest to how hard it actually is to like put on meaningful body weight. Like I literally, when I first started like gaining weight intentionally, I would have to eat until I felt ill in every meal. Like I had to eat more than I wanted to repetitively, and it wasn't
yeah,
comfortable.
I had to do the same. When I was trying to like, well, my powerlifting coach was basically like, you're doing great. If you actually want to do some powerlifting meets and do well, you might consider like intentionally doing a really long like bulking cycle and like gaining some muscle
Yeah.
like over I did it for like a year, and hopefully this is okay to say, but for like several months I was eating well over 3,000 calories a day, like on purpose to try to gain weight, and it worked. But I was surprised by how, because I think we all think like, oh, if I just eat a little bit more and work out, I might, get really bulky. But it takes a lot of effort. And I don't think people are worried that's going to happen quickly or without them like trying. But for most people with like a normal body type and normal health status, that's probably not going to happen at all.
And you're gonna see it coming a mile away too. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and I feel like a lot of times when my clients are gaining weight, like sometimes they'll be like, oh, I'm definitely gaining weight from lifting. Like I'm feeling bigger. I'm like, have you weighed yourself? They're like, no, but my clothes are fitting differently. And I'm like, okay, you're probably just recomping. Like your body's gonna pull in glycogen to muscles that you're training. And if you weren't training your legs before, or you weren't training your shoulders like this before, your body wasn't holding on to that glycogen. It's water weight most of the
Yeah.
time. Like you're not going to gain that much weight immediately. That's actually muscle. It's hard to do. It's a lot of times it's just a little bit of water weight that goes away when you're not as inflamed, when you're not training.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried about it, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a big myth that climbers have. And I did a poll on my Instagram stories last year also. And like I had how many people answered that? Hundreds of people answered this poll. Like I want to say like 400 plus people answered the poll. And I put up like, okay, if you're afraid to gain weight from lifting, how much weight are you worried about? And like the average answer was somewhere between like 2 and 12 pounds. And I was like, you guys, 2 and 12 pounds, like depending on how big you are of a person, that could be water weight. Like that could
That's the difference between your morning and evening climbing session. Like
exactly.
based on like two, like, 3 pounds that you between if you climbed in the morning and then you climbed at night after you had dinner. Like that's
Yeah.
what that is.
That could literally be food weight. Like
Yeah,
just food
exactly.
weight. And also like we can definitely put 2 to 12 pounds on your lifts, like on your pull up, on your weighted pull up, on your hangboard. Like it wouldn't be that hard to increase your strength to match that weight gain if you're doing
Yeah.
like either.
That's the I mean, yeah, if we're, if climbing is a strength to weight ratio sport, well, strength is a lot healthier and infinitely upwardly moving thing to manipulate. Like you could get lighter, but only up to a certain point healthfully, and only like it's not really a long-term way to get better. Like you might in the very short term experience like a perceived increase in how you're performing on certain things, but like probably not for the long term.
Yeah, if you just continue training, you're going to get stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people that. I'm like, okay, if it's a strength to weight ratio, there's more than one thing we can manipulate there. Like you can get lighter to feel stronger, you can actually get stronger. Like, and one of those things is more sustainable.
Yeah. No,
So,
it's so important, especially, I mean, I am like the biggest advocate for strength training, but I have, struggled emotionally with like disordered eating thoughts and behaviors and like body issues, like especially climbing as a young woman girl from like a young age for several years. Like it's so hard to not have that kind of like niggle its way into your brain. But having like the knowledge and ability to like do the strength training and approach it in like a healthy way is like the best in my experience been like the best way to combat that, because I have the evidence to show that like even if you have those, you know, negative thoughts and feelings about yourself or your body or about how lean you should be and how lean this other person is who climbs whatever, like what actually works in like a healthy way. And so, and with injury prevention too, like you were talking about before. Yeah. I I think it's crucial for that. Like I would attribute my general lack of injury almost probably entirely to strength training.
yeah, I feel that too. Yeah, that's really helpful to say, not to say that like, you should never feel bad about your body or you should never want to change it. We live in a world, we live in a society. Like, you
Yes.
know, like not even over and above climbing. Like we also just live in a society where we're told, especially as women, that like smaller is better. So it's ingrained in us and like we have to combat those thoughts every day. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really helpful for people to listen to people like me, listen to people like you, who've experienced the benefits of strength training and try to like tamper those fears down a little bit and try it out.
For
Um,
sure. For sure.
I'm glad you said that. Okay, the other thing that people kind of worry about when it comes to incorporating strength training is they're worried that like it's going to interfere with their climbing time, or like they're not sure how to like balance the strength training and the climbing. Do you feel like strength training like actually interferes with your training, or like what would you?
No, I mean, strength training is my training.
Yeah.
But I would say to people who would say something that is to ask them to really reflect on the amount of climbing they're doing, exactly what they're doing during that time, and what they feel is being accomplished by that time they spend climbing. I mean, of course, sometimes like you just want to go to the gym for 2.5 hours with your friends and like mess around. I'm not saying that like every climbing session has to be like so perfectly focused and like time constrained, because that's not always realistic or what you want to be doing. But yeah, I mean, I would think for most people who are climbing a lot in the gym and are worried about strength training taking up the time, I would say like you don't need to climb for 2.5 hours. I would guarantee you that not all of that time is like helping you get better at climbing. And you could strength train for an 45 minutes to an hour and climb for an hour and have the same length of session that is going to be more useful for like your long-term, strength and skill benefits. So yeah, there is some, and I also think like what you were saying, people are looking at like bodybuilders, weightlifters, whatever. Like I am not doing like 6 accessory exercises when I'm at the gym. Like I don't think that's necessary for climbing. I'm kind of focusing on like, a few quote big lifts like rows, overhead press or bench, deadlift, squat, and like maybe a couple accessory exercises to support like each of those larger things. But otherwise, I'm not doing a bunch of like bicep curls, tricep extensions, quad extensions, all those accessory stuff that you would think that bodybuilders do. I don't do that. And so once I'm finished with like my big core like lifting stuff, then I just climb and, warm up and spend whatever amount of time I need on like a very focused, like hard bouldering session.
Yeah, so you hear that, you guys? Like it can be that easy. I feel like a lot of people get sucked into like thinking that first of all, people climb with a lot of non-focus. They're not focused in their climbing sessions. They're doing a bunch of junk mileage, or they're not actually like focusing on their climbing or being thoughtful about their climbing. Like I've seen people fall and I'm like, they didn't even know why they fell, or they're using like they're every time they go on the wall, it's a different beta. I'm like, you're not thinking about your climbing. So being more mindful of
Mm-hmm.
your climbing sessions, but also like the lifting doesn't have to be complicated. Like I
Right.
people do like bodybuilder circuits or like fitness circuits where they're doing like 10 different exercises. And I'm like, if you guys pick like compound movements and do them really heavy, like it's going to be way more effective and you're going to be in and out of the gym so much faster
Yep. Totally agreed.
and less waste of energy too. Because I think, if bodybuilding's not your goal, there is junk mileage in lifting too, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like doing a bunch of arm circuits and like quad extensions is probably just going to make me I'm tired for climbing or take up the time that I would want to climb. So it's a balance for sure. But yeah, you want to focus, and I'm trying to focus on the things that I can like lift the heaviest on and progress over time. Like especially at this stage in my, you know, strength training climbing journey, I'm no longer able to like tack on 5 pounds a week and keep going on that. Like my beginner gains are long in the past, but I can still, especially like, starting after not lifting in a lot in a few months, I was climbing outside a lot and kind of focusing on just maintaining at like, an 80% level. I can still add like 1.25 to 2.5 pounds a week on most of my big lifts for like several weeks or months, depending on what the lift is. So yeah, I think.
You can still make some progress. All right, can you share like exactly, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but can you share like how you structure like a training week? Like how often are you climbing? How often are you lifting? It sounds like you're lifting before a climbing session. Like what does it look like? How do you balance it?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, first I want to say, I think another thing I hear from people is like, well, how do I lift and climb outside? I want to climb outside all the time. And I guess my advice there is like, if you're in a period where you're going to be like projecting climbing outside a lot, well, that's not really a period where you're going to be like deep in the gym working on your progressive overload. Like
Yeah.
you're just going to be kind of maintaining and doing a lot less lifting. So
Yeah.
so that for me is like the summer and fall here, where I'm like not really that worried about lifting other than doing some lifts like once, maybe twice a week, just at like a maintenance level to like stay strong and like stay healthy. But during like peak training time, I I'm just trying to think so I make sure I say this right, because sometimes it does vary. I feel like I've been doing it long enough where sometimes I'm not super structured because I kind of know the gist of like what I'm trying to do. I'm not like in my Excel spreadsheet every day, kind of like tracking
Yeah.
everything in a lot of detail. I kind of just have a little journal that I write in at the end of every session. Um, but I am focused on the big lifts, like I said. So I divide my lifting up usually into my squatting and like main leg stuff and my like pulling stuff. So pulling meaning like bent over barbell rows or like weighted pull-ups or the isometric like lock offs that you used to have me do that I'm still doing to help with my elbow that I think
Awesome.
is such a good strength training tool as well. So I'm doing pulling upper back stuff and then squats and maybe like some heavy lunges or one other like leg exercise. So that's my lifting. And then I will do a hard bouldering session after that. Usually on like the tension board or kilter board, I kind of go back and forth between those two. And sometimes I will do a real like limit bouldering session where like I'm sending basically nothing. Like I'm just trying my absolute hardest on really hard stuff the whole time. Sometimes I will do a session where it's still quite hard, but maybe more at like 80-85%, where I'm just trying to do a few more boulders that are like I could do them in a couple tries, but still having to try really hard to do them and get a little bit more mileage in. That would be more like what I would do directly after a lifting session. Whereas the full on like limit bouldering, I would try to do like on its own day, like where I can just completely focus on being fresh and like bouldering as hard as I can. So I guess a sample week would be like Monday, I did my super hard limit bouldering session. Tuesday, I did one of my lifting blocks and then did a slightly less hard climbing session after. And then I would rest. And then the next day, I would probably do some sort of weighted hangs. Lately, I've been doing like the one arm kind of like tension block pulls off the ground, but I did normal weighted hangs for years, like max weighted hangs where you do like 3 sets of 10 seconds with your kind of max weight attached to you, and then do a climbing session. And then the next day after that, do my second lifting block. So I'm usually doing like the powerlifting probably twice a week. The second one, I mentioned the squats and like pulling before. My second one, I will deadlift and do my like pushing stuff. So like overhead press or bench or whatever. That's just my preferred way to split it up. I feel like the squats and deadlifts are the two kind of most taxing things on my body. So I prefer to split them up and do sessions focused around deadlifting on a, Friday, and then not squatting till like the following Tuesday or something like that. So probably training, like focused training like that, like 4 times a week. And then maybe I'll have one session a week where I'm just like, I don't know, in the gym with friends or doing something else. Sometimes maybe because I'm pressed for time, I will only get to lift on a day, and then I might have another extra climbing session another day because I couldn't fit it in that day. So hopefully that makes sense and I didn't just ramble without much clarity.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, that's similar to how I like prefer to do it. And then, yeah, obviously it's flexible. You can shuffle things around if something comes up or you missed a day or something.
Yeah.
Does it change like during the season or like I know sometimes you go out during the week after work, like
Yes.
when you're like going outside and climbing, like how does that change for you?
Well, first, when I know, oh, like it's gonna be good weather in like a few weeks or in like a couple weeks or something, I start to kind of like a little bit taper off the heavy lifting that I'm doing and kind of replace that with just more bouldering to kind of, because I do feel like, especially climbing out here where you're hiking up to like 10, 11, 12,000 feet and having a really long projecting session, I feel like I like to have a few weeks where I'm trying to increase my like session stamina for a little bit. And I don't usually do much cardio at all, but I'll like go on some runs or some hikes just so I'm not like totally like bricked by the hike the first time I go climbing outside of the season. So I do like sprinkle some like cardio in there a little bit. But yeah, when I'm in the, climbing season here, like I have a project that I'm trying to go to, my preferred cadence for climbing outside when I'm like at home is probably twice a week, like go out once after work during the week and then once on the weekend, especially if I'm trying some like V13 thing. Like I can't try that hard meaningfully in project like 3-4 times a week. That's just it's not possible. So I would probably, in addition to those 2 projecting sessions, I would maybe have one kind of like more chill climbing session at the gym, just because I like to. I feel like maybe I could even drop that, but I like to, and it's kind of my social scene as well, and it's just fun. So I'll go and do some fun climbing on the kilter board or whatever, and then I will also do one like strength training session. But I'm no longer at that point trying to like add weight to the bar every week anymore. I've kind of identified my like maybe 80%, so where I'm still like kind of trying hard to do it, but it doesn't feel that taxing, and just kind of doing that for kind of the duration of the summer or fall to maintain a certain level. But I really don't want to be doing anything that's going to make me tired or like take away from the energy that I need to project.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're still training during projecting, just a little maintenance, strength
Yeah,
training.
for sure.
And it's cool to hear that you still have like fun sessions with friends because I know some people are like, well, I don't want to be like super serious, like training mode all the time. I still want to go have fun with my friends. It's like you just have to like find a way to balance it with your.
Yeah, like especially here, like in the winter when it can be really cold here, like on the weekend, we'll go to a different gym that we haven't been to in a while. So like all the sets or all the boulders are like new and just go climb around and like try to boulder on different stuff and mess around, which is fun. And it's skill building in a way. Like we'll try to do it can your stamina, your skill, whatever, climb on different stuff. If I thought it would be the best for my climbing ever, I would only ever climb on the board, but I should, be diverse and climb on other styles sometimes as well. So
I prefer board climbing for some reason. I don't know, just feels it's more fun.
it is. I love board climbing. I don't know. My favorite thing, and this I think came from powerlifting. I felt like I was never like able to access this as much when I was younger, but like the full on like intensity and like grr of trying super hard is so fun. And I feel like I get that the most trying something hard on the board.
Yeah.
A lot of like the gym sets maybe aren't necessarily doing that for me, like the super try hard. So
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. I'm really short. How tall are you?
well, I've been telling people for years that I was 5'8", but I recently had a DEXA scan and they measured me and I'm only 5'7.5".
Oh, okay.
So
Kind of half
I
inch there.
either shrunk or I'm shorter than I thought I've been all these
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
What's your ape?
+2.
Plus two. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 5'2", but I also have a +2. So I find that like at the gym, when it starts to get to like the 7 or 8 level, it starts to get a little compy, or it just starts to get like dinos to slopers or something crazy where it just doesn't feel as accessible to me. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
or I can always find something hard to like project where I'm being challenged in a way that feels like doable to me. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what's fun about the boards.
It's definitely a skill to set really hard boulders that are hard, not because the move is large, like
Yeah.
that it's hard because of the body positioning or other aspects for sure.
Yeah. They exist, like they're out there, but for the most part, it's like, oh, we're just gonna make you dino to a slope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Well, and with climbing on the board, I mean, those climbs are going to stay there. So, I'll have boulders that I'm trying like for several sessions on the board, which you don't necessarily get in the gym when they're resetting quite regularly.
yeah, I love that because you can go back and like see how it feels to you like months or a year later and feel like, oh my God, this used to be so hard for me. And it's
Yeah. And it's climbing is kind of fickle. Like sometimes you don't like, am I getting better? Especially when you've been doing it for a really long time, even year on year, you're like, am I better than I was at this last year? Like, I don't really know. So it's nice to have tools to like tell you that, yes, you are.
yeah, totally. Cool. Okay. I have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
So for climbers who are hesitant to start strength training, like what would you say to encourage them to give it a shot? What would be your advice to anyone who's like on the fence about it?
Yeah. No, this is a great question. I was just talking to a couple of girlfriends about this recently. I've been like, oh, about being like hesitant to do it. And I guess I shouldn't say surprised, but like, oh, I'm embarrassed, like I'm gonna look silly, or maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So it's a big, like there's these whole sets of movements and a whole like set of things that you have to like learn how to do. And it takes time and it can be a big learning curve. I don't know. My advice would, maybe this sounds silly, would be like watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Like there's so much content on the internet about lifting and how to do certain exercises properly and stuff. So just do some homework at first. And also my advice is like, I think people are very focused on having perfect form. And so that's kind of like, well, I don't know how to do it right. There's like a fear, like if my form is even a little bit quote bad, then I'm just gonna like break my back. I'm exaggerating, but I don't know if you hear this from people like really worried about form. But obviously doing the exercise appropriately is important, but like form is not like this crazy exact science that people think it is at all. Is so I would encourage people to like not worry so much about that, and also to not worry about, I was hearing this from my friend too about like exactly what exercises to be doing. Like as long as you pick, some lifts that you can reliably add weight to over time that are targeting kind of the full body spectrum of things like posterior chain, legs, like pulling, pushing, and you can add weight to that over time and you're just consistent. Like that's all that really matters. At least that's what I've been telling people.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, just get in there and do it. Like, pick a movement pattern out of those movement buckets that you like, that you're interested in, and just start training it. Like, you're going to get stronger. And yeah, don't worry as much about form. Like, a lot of times people are going to settle into form, but also, like, being slightly off is not going to injure you. Like, you're going to progress really slowly. You're going to start with something you can do. You're going to warm up. You're going to progress slowly. And it's a lot more complicated than just like, oh, well, I was just not doing it correctly, so that's why I got hurt. Like, you'll see powerlifters deadlifting 900 pounds with a rounded back. And if
Yeah.
someone's just learning how to deadlift, they're going to be like, that's wrong. But like, no, that's not actually wrong for them. Like, that's the technique that they use to deadlift that weight. And a lot of times, wrong form too is like, it's subjective. That person trained that way, so their body's adapted to doing it that way. And actually, like, especially for deadlifts, like deadlifting with a rounded back actually is more efficient than deadlifting with a straight back because it
Yeah.
brings the weight closer to your center of mass. So I always teach people to do it with a flat back because I want them to learn how to control their body. And for climbers, especially getting a little more like back extension and training your back. But it's not wrong. It's everybody has their own technique and you're going to settle into it over
Yeah.
time.
That makes total sense. And at least I feel this way for myself. And I would argue that like, if you're really like, if you're at, RPE 9, your perfect form is going to break a little bit. Like it should feel, if it feels really heavy, like you're going to have to try and like, it's not going to look like pristine.
Right.
Or you're going to, kip a little bit or, use some momentum.
Right.
There's like, a range where that's fine, of course. But yeah, I feel like I've heard that a lot from my friends who are like hesitant about lifting. It's like about the form being perfect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it's just like climbing. Like when you first start climbing, you're not like, oh, I'm afraid to do it wrong and I'm gonna get hurt. No, you just like go and climb.
Yeah.
Like lifting is the same way. Like you're not gonna deadlift 300 pounds your first day in the gym. Like you're gonna start with what you can do, just like climbing, you're gonna start with a V0, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. I love that advice. Anything else? Any other advice you would give to someone who's new or someone who's hesitant to start strength training?
Um, I don't know. Anything that I guess my question is like, where's their hesitancy coming from, right? Because it's coming from somewhere, like usually like a fear-based place about like gaining weight or um, looking like silly in the gym, like they don't know what they're doing. But also like if you're a climber and you're at the climbing gym lifting, it's not like you're going to Gold's Gym, like or just like everyone's figured. Maybe that sounds silly, but like everyone, most people at the gym at the climbing gym are lifting as like a supplement to their climbing. Nobody's like a professional. Most people aren't professional power lifters in there. No one's judging you. No one cares what you're doing. Like no one's looking at you. At least I'm not like looking at other people, analyzing what they're doing, thinking about them looking silly, like ever when I'm at the gym, unless it's completely egregious, which is very rare.
Yeah, I'm also like, dude, there like I have a lot of women who are like, I don't know, it's like, there's a lot of men in there and like they know what they're doing, and I don't want to be like that woman in there who does it. I'm like, dude, I go in there and I watch dudes do stuff completely wrong with their whole chest, and they
But
don't
they're
care.
confident about it
Yeah,
because
I'm
they're
like,
like,
they
this
don't
is my
care.
place. Yeah, I was
In
going to
there
say
doing
that.
it wrong confidently.
I don't know if you have found this in like the many clients that you work with, but at least it seems more of like um, women climbers who are like, oh, I'm hesitant because I'm nervous about looking silly. And my like very feminist self is like, you are not silly. No man is worried about looking silly.
Yeah, exactly.
um, so yeah, identifying like where is the hesitancy coming from and trying to like break that down. I would imagine it's usually related to like fear of like all the things you mentioned, like not climbing as much and like my climbing skills are just going to go away if I'm not climbing like a million hours in my session
Right.
anymore, or um, fear of like gaining weight, which that has its own like set of things to unpack, both like emotionally and just in reality and how that actually works.
Yeah.
And then just like fear of looking silly, but also like everyone who was a climber was once a total beginner and probably felt like really silly at the gym, like fumbling on V1 while there are like double digit climbers in there. Like
Yeah.
once you start, it just takes time, and eventually you're going to be like, oh wow, I can't even remember when I was a beginner at this, because now I feel so comfortable with it. So yeah, you just have to get started.
Yeah, just get started. Most people are friendly anyway. Like, you go to the climbing gym, people are nice. You go in the weight room, people are generally nice anyway, and no
Yeah.
one's judging each other.
Like
So,
if some random person came up to me at the gym and was like, can you give me some advice on this thing? I would be thrilled. I would be like,
yeah,
I'm so glad that you want my advice. Like, that's so nice. Let me help you as much as possible.
yeah, totally, totally. Cool. Okay, last question. You recently turned into a cat person. Can we talk
Yes.
about
Yes. So much so.
You have two cats now, right?
I do.
So cute. When did you get your first cat?
We got Milo, our tuxedo kitty, in it's been a little bit over 4 years now. We got him beginning of 2021, so like peak COVID times.
Yeah.
And really we were just like kind of sad and isolated with COVID. And we had been thinking about, we had always talked about getting a dog. We were living in a small apartment in LA, and we're just like, we're not going to get a dog right now. And I was hesitant about getting a cat because I had the total stereotypical ideas about what cats are like aloof, mean, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And my husband, Evan, grew up with cats, and he's like, no, I promise you, if we get like a good kitty, it's going to be amazing. So we got him, exceeded all expectations. And then once we moved to Colorado, Milo really needed a friend. So we got little Remy like 2.5 years ago.
Cute. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love watching that transformation. You're like, oh my God, am I a cat person? Look how
Yes.
cute these cats are. And like seeing all your like cat photos and
Yeah. I my husband just sent me, he's on a work trip right now, but he just sent me this stupid like meme, and it was like one of those fake news articles. Local couple maintains strong relationship by taking turns pointing out cat sleeping in cute position.
true. Look what
Like,
the cat's
yes.
doing now.
Look at him. Look at him. He looks the same as always, but you have to look.
He's just existing, but it's adorable.
Yes, they're wonderful, especially working from home. Like they're just so funny, and like so it's enjoyable to watch and be
Well,
around.
I'm definitely a cat person. People probably know that because they see my cats too. We were having some cat drama right before we got on this call.
Oh
So
no, were they having a tussle?
my kitten got his first dingleberry and
That's a
never happened
milestone for
before.
him.
And he was trying to run away from it, but it was attached to him. So he was like speeding around the house, like trying to get it off and get it away from him, but it was on him. So I had to like try to catch it, like wrangle him. And like I'm like, let me help you. I can get it off. Like
Oh, that's so funny. Getting those off of cats is they don't love that. At least my cat doesn't like having me using a paper towel trying to pull something off of his butt.
he's like, don't touch me. Like I'm trying to help you. But yeah, they're fuzzy, so it happens sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And one at your cat Moose, and then
The
you have Moose and then a kitten, right?
I have Moose. I have Boo, who hides a lot. She was like feral, and I got her, and then the lockdowns happened. So
Mm,
I never got socialized. Like I never had like a bunch of people. Like with Moose, I had roommates when I got him a long time ago. He's like 16, so I had roommates at the time, and he was meeting tons of people. People would come over. Moose has been to Yosemite.
aw,
Like he's been camping and
he's well
stuff.
traveled.
So he loves people. But Boo, like when I got her, lockdowns happened and we just didn't hang around with lots of people. And so she never really got socialized. So she hides a lot. I mean, she's out like when it's just me at home, like laying on the bed and stuff, but she hides a lot when people come over and like, I don't know, she likes to hide. So there's not as many pictures of her, but it's Boo. She's my calico, fluffy calico. And then
Oh,
I just got a kitten in April. And yeah, he's all black, fluffy kitty.
oh.
Yeah.
I keep telling Evan, I'm like, we should get another kitten. He's like, I don't think we need 3 cats. I think we can stick with the 2 we have for now.
It's so tempting to get more. Like, what's one more?
They're so cute I mean, they're still so cute, but like kittens are special cute.
He was so cute when he grew up so fast though. I'm like, oh my God, it happened so fast.
Yeah,
They grow up fast, but
they
yeah.
do.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing your insights, your experience. It's really inspiring to see somebody thrive in both climbing and strength training, especially at your level in climbing. For our listeners, if you've been hesitant about lifting, hopefully this conversation gives you the confidence to start incorporating it into your training. Stay tuned for more episodes because we'll be talking about this with more people. But thank you so much for the time and for the chat.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And honestly, I think more and more like high level and pro climbers are like starting to lift and do it's becoming more the norm. And obviously people keep getting stronger. So gotta
Yeah.
jump on the train. But thank you so much for having me. I was so flattered that you wanted me to be on and talk about this. So thanks.